And we're late.
But we're back. And that's what matters.
That's what matters. We're here at our new studio at Guns for Everyone with Edgar, who's going to be our producer. You're probably going to see him. Maybe, I don't know. It depends when he wants to show himself on screen. But you'll hear him for sure. Sure.
And we're very grateful to have him. Thank you so much, Edgar, for jumping on board to help us with our podcast.
And also making our voices really sexy.
Yeah, we sound so good today. Thanks to this studio equipment.
I'm literally gonna just talk just to hear myself talk. That's different sexy little voice. But anyway, my husband's like, you need to stop with that.
Of course.
Sexy little voice. So yeah, we are here. So it is a trigger warning 2A with Antonia Okafor.
And I'm Nina Prevo. Thank you all for tuning in today. Please be sure to jump in the live chat and ask questions if you want to pick our brains today, or if you want to ask any question of our guest as well.
Right. So we actually have a really amazing guest. I started geeking out when I found out about this organization. It's called Hold My Guns. And they're on Instagram. I don't think they're on Twitter, but at least they're on Instagram. That's all that matters right now in the social media game. And they have a really great organization, which I'm not going to, go too much into it. But basically, it's the alternative that as gun owners, as constitutionally sound gun owners, have been waiting for. This alternative to the red flag laws, which is the only way that we're going to actually help people who are dealing with mental health issues and those who shouldn't have guns at this point. Thanks a lot, Edgar. Who shouldn't have guns at this point are if we make the government get involved somehow. So and then we kind of remember, oh yeah, wait, actually the people actually know what's best for us, and since we can know what's best for us, then we should have our own organizations in order to implement things like that. So Hold My Guns is literally an organization that holds your guns voluntarily, of course, and they're able to hold it. And so when you need it, you go back into it, and they'll talk more about it. But it's definitely a great alternative to unconstitutional red flag laws.
Right. I'm excited to hear what their plan is and how they intend to put that into motion. Because if people do have mental health issues, I would much rather a gun be held by some kind of third-party entity who could be trusted versus the state just declaring that that person is dangerous and then taking that gun away from them. And who knows what happens with personal property once the state has it in their possession. I mean, it could go anywhere, could just disappear. Right. Probably you'll never see it again. So with a third party, you can have a little bit more reliance with stuff like that. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk to them and figure out where they got their inspiration and how that works out. So we'll bring them in a little bit here.
Yeah, but before we get into that conversation, just a little bit, we don't have, thankfully, actually, it's kind of, we were trying to figure out just like a few minutes ago, like what's actually going on in news cycle world. And it's actually been kind of, I want to say quiet, but not really so. Really, it's been consistent, right? Usually those news cycles there's always something new coming on, like probably like every day, 24-hour news cycle, literally there's something new every 24 hours. That's big, but I feel like I know you hate me talking about this, the squad thing hasn't been a whole thing for the last like at least a good week now. And it's a continuation of that whole news cycle story. So,
and I mean, we've kind of made a point on our podcast to not just delve into Trump news, and the news cycle has been almost entirely Trump, mostly because of his own doing, because he's trying to distract the American people from some asylum law changes that he's making. And I would encourage our listeners, if you don't know what Trump has done to limit asylum without the media paying attention at all, I really would encourage you to look into that. But we're not feeding into the Trumpaganda, the Trump derangement syndrome thing. So we're just going to talk about one silly story that we kind of found, and just briefly. I don't know if you want me to introduce
Nina, talk about. I've only seen I've seen the backlash of it. I haven't seen the actual footage or what's going on. So what's going on, Nina, in this whole
Georgia
go back home thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mean, the basics is that there was a Georgia lawmaker, and she's a woman of color. Yeah, of course. I know. I should just say that because I can get into my whole thing about how woman of or person of color and colored are really just the same word. But in any event, she was trying to check out an express lane with more than 15 items. It was one of those you can only have 15 items in this lane. And some guy came up to her and said, like, excuse me, like, you have too many items. And they got into a bit of a dispute. And I think that there were some pretty harsh words said, but when she went online and retold the story, she claimed that he said, "Go back to where you came from." And she had a press conference because her social media in that regard was going viral. So she had a press conference, but the guy who had confronted her in the grocery store showed up to the press conference in person and said that, "I actually didn't say that to you." And it turns out that guy is actually a Democrat. He is anti-Trump. He's part of the resistance, so to speak, and all of this. And so after that happened, the next time she was on, the news or whatever, she said, "Well, I can't really say that he told me to go back where he came from, but I could tell that was the implication of kind of this dispute that we got in." So in less than 24 hours, she went from sobbing, saying,
Yeah.
"He told me to go back to where I came from," to being like, "Actually, I can't really say in all honesty that he said that."
Yeah, and I love the comments on this. Like, looking on social media, that's the nice thing about social media, seeing things like just live and what people are saying as it happens. And it's just like, oh, now people are on the defensive. Like, who really cares that he's a Democrat? No one really cares about that. Like, oh yeah, no one really cares that he is exactly what she was saying, that, the stereotype that she wanted everybody to believe is that he was this Trump, like, pro-Trump, racist person that hates him. And it's feeding on the narrative, the whole obviously go back home, right? Which is, again, in the news cycle, which is really very
and how convenient
exactly.
that someone was using that same line, like, within a week of Trump saying that online. But I thought it was particularly humorous because the thing is, there's plenty of things that happen in life that you want to be critical of another person, but you don't need to make up stuff. You don't need to make up anything like that. And I'm proud of that guy for going to the press conference and forcing her to acknowledge the truth.
Right. Well, yeah. So I know. Oh, do we have any comments before we move on to our interview? Did anyone say anything
about that?
No. They're like, okay, good.
I also think that going into 2020, and sorry, I know that I'm kind of rambling about this a little bit, but going into 2020, it's stunts like this that are going to guarantee kind of Trump's reelection, in my opinion, because the more often people cry wolf, so to speak, the less likely it'll be that people, I don't know, actually respond to stories like this. Because the next time you hear someone say, "Oh, someone told me to go back where I came from," like, how seriously will you take it?
Right.
And so there's so much lying, in effect, to try to, create a narrative. But the thing is, you can't bend reality. And if you keep trying to bend reality, people will pick up on that. So I don't know. I think this kind of stuff happens sort of a lot. It's the same thing with why can't I think of his name? The guy, Jussie. Yeah, I was gonna say the guy who put a noose around his own neck, and then like was apparently viciously assaulted, but never even dropped his sandwich.
That's when Nina knew. There's no way you're not dropping your sandwich.
I gotta say, like, if I'm walking through a polar vortex with a Subway sandwich, and I get jumped with some people who are putting a noose around my neck, like, I'm dropping the sandwich. Like, Subway's not even good.
But wait, did he say it was Subway?
It was definitely Subway.
Wasn't it like 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it was, but it was definitely a Subway sandwich.
Oh, it was Subway sandwich. Okay, right there, I would have been like, everyone knows Subway is not 24/7.
Well,
everyone knows that.
The other thing too is, like, when the cops got there, like a half an hour later, once he had gotten to his friend's apartment, he still had the noose around his neck. Yeah, I won't go into this Jussie Smollett thing again, because there's just so really much that doesn't make sense in
existence at that time. Well, maybe we were, but we were pretty newbies, so we didn't want to talk about it. But there were so many things we could have talked about. We could still talk about that stuff because they dropped the charges, didn't they? Didn't the prosecutor drop
Yeah,
it?
I mean, it was a big scandal, but now the government in Chicago is trying to have a special prosecutor appointed because they're so upset about how many
Okay.
taxpayer resources were used to try to prosecute him, not to mention the fact that it's so obviously fake. It's unprecedented that he would have that charge be or have that be dismissed with the kind of indictments that he was facing. So,
Oh, okay. So I think our guests are actually here.
oh yay, okay, yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Having the show.
Hey.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us on. Thank you. This is fun. We've been looking forward to this.
Before I mess things up, it's Sarah and Genevieve, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm Sarah. This is Genevieve.
Hey, Antonia.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Nina.
Hi, Nina. Hi, Antonia. Nice to virtually meet you guys officially. Yeah, nice. You have Edgar there with you too. How awesome is that?
Right? I didn't know that you guys. Well, do you guys know each other or before I start assuming things?
Edgar and I
Edgar
have
is
talked
pretty
a
well
few
known.
times online, but yeah, like he's pretty cool. So I'm glad that he's helping you out tonight. It's awesome.
Yeah. He's letting us use the studio, so he's pretty cool right now too. So
Very cool. Before we get into this, we're using this computer for the first time. I just want to make sure you can hear us okay and everything looks clear, so we don't have to adjust anything later on. How does it sound?
Yeah, you guys look great. I
You
think-
guys are really clear.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
good.
Yeah, really well. So, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really eager to talk about Hold My Guns. I'm so glad that well, to be honest, this is like how social media works, right? Like literally, I think you followed me or followed Empowered actually. And then I saw, I was like, Hold My Guns. Oh, what is this? And then I started geeking out. And so I literally, this is how I go, guys. I literally like reached out to her, gave her my numbers, like, let's talk. So we had like a whole hour-long conversation before I even like obviously haven't met you in real life. But yeah, so please, can you tell a little bit, well, you're gonna tell a lot about your organization, but tell us a little bit about Hold My Guns and the story of how you guys started this organization.
Thank you. So in a nutshell, Hold My Guns is crisis firearms storage. So it is meant to be a voluntary option for gun owners and their families when they're having a difficult time. All right, thank you. Good. we're still getting used to this setup here. So it's crisis firearms storage meant to be used in a voluntary situation where gun owners and their family are going towards a hard time, having a hard time. And the way that it started was that last fall, a friend of ours took her own life with a firearm. We believe it belonged to a parent. And so as our RSO people came to me and they said, hey, Sarah, surely now you think that gun control should be a thing, because someone has died. And I said, let's just camp out for a little bit and acknowledge that we're really grieving right now. And that, we need to first honor the fact that a life was lost and not turn it into something political. I think a lot of times, it's easy to get politics involved. And the more I thought about it, I realized that there were not a lot of options in situations like these. In the state of Pennsylvania, you can't just give your firearm to a friend to store for you. And so, it is, hang on, we're getting to turn our audio down just. Thanks. Talk quieter. Make it work.
You guys, you sound great now.
Okay. So this fall, I was just thinking through, I don't really see a lot of options. A lot of people say, oh, just if you're having a hard time, just give it to a friend. Well, if you do that in Pennsylvania, then your friend can get in a lot of trouble and so can you. So as I thought through it, I reached out to Genevieve and she put me in touch with an excellent attorney. And he helped me to think through the right way to make this solution work. And that solution is to utilize existing storage at gun shops and FFLs. They already have storage, they have insurance, they have everything already set up. And so just to create like a community program at local gun shops where they can accept firearms. And so the way that the attorney helped me to sort it out with the ATF is that it's treated like a consignment transaction. So again, it's a very basic transaction for gun shops, something they're already familiar with doing. And voluntarily, when the owner of that firearm chooses to come pick it up, that sounds a little different there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that they would go through a background check just like you would if you're picking up a firearm that was in consignment, but the owner decided not to sell it.
Wow.
Interesting. Well, I want to say first, I'm so sorry to hear about this loss that you guys went through. That's really sad.
I appreciate that. She was 18.
Oh gosh, even yeah, especially at that age. That's really sad to hear. So how, in your opinion, like you just laid out some of the basics about what you could do with your organization, but in your opinion, how could your organization have prevented what happened to your friend?
That's a great question, Nina. So in this situation, if parents or family members were seeing warning signs in someone, if a person was expressing suicidal ideations, or they were cutting themselves, or doing things, taking risks, there's a whole list of some warning signs that not everybody, sees right away. But when they start to see something's wrong, then responsibly they can take a firearm to one of our storage partners, have it stored, make sure that their home is safe, and then they can go, or in whatever order, they can go talk to their medical professional, mental health professional, and say, we are having our firearms stored. We really need to get some help here. And then from there, they can make a decision with their medical team when it would be appropriate to bring it back in the house. But again, that's on the gun owner. It's a self-governance option.
Right. That's so important. I think that's part of what this whole narrative and this whole thing with red flag laws is that a lot of people just, especially those on the anti-gun side, just want to, put us into this, box and make it seem like as if, gun owners don't care about suicide, or don't care about mental health, or don't care about those who are hurting and what we're supposed to do in those situations. And I will say, even as a gun owner, and also someone, I've been pretty public about this, probably not as much, but because I'm a sexual assault survivor, at a young age, I had to deal with a lot of depression and anxiety, and I still do. And, it's something, as a responsible gun owner, though, I also believe that you have to, if you know that you're in a place where you're getting, dangerously close to something that's not a good situation for yourself, you have to take precautions in order to, whether that's give your firearm to family members. But, like in places like Pennsylvania, like you said, like that's illegal.
Right.
So people don't even have that option. So you have to have that, basically you have to have the conversation, because unfortunately in the gun owners community, the Second Amendment community, it is still taboo to talk about this, because it's a bad thing, right? We're not supposed to talk about those people, but that's a majority of people.
Right.
No question. Okay, so I think Edgar said that we have a question. Edgar,
Cool.
can you let us know what the question is?
Yeah, question from Nathan. He says, this is for Hold My Guns. I was wondering if it's expensive to use. Storing and looking after my firearms can be an expensive undertaking. And if you can't, I know you can't speak for everyone, but Guns for Everyone has been holding guns for this type of situation for a little over a year now.
Great.
So I just want to pass that question along because it was there, but we've been doing this for quite a bit, and I could maybe help out a little bit, but that's your question, and I'm gonna shut up now.
Okay, Edgar, yeah, shut up.
Thanks, Edgar.
That's a great question. First of all, we are still in the fundraising stage, so we have not set if a dollar amount, if any, on what the storage should be.
Right.
Once we get over our fundraising hurdle, we're going to create our nonprofit, and we'll have a board of directors, and they're going to help us to make some of those decisions. Something Genevieve and I were talking about this week with a wonderful gun shop that we went in and picked their brains over, was that we were all in agreement that if there is a cost at all, it should be very low cost.
Right.
We don't want it to be prohibitive for people to bring it in, for bringing their firearms. We don't want people to be taken advantage of. It's very important that everything is transparent, so they would know ahead of time what those costs might be. So let's say if, for example, it were the first 30 days free, then they would have, they would know that after that it might be $10 a month or something like that. And through our nonprofit, we're hoping to offset some of those storage costs as well. So I don't have a clear answer on that yet, just because we haven't we don't have our board formed and in place yet. It's very soon forthcoming, and that is something that's one of our priority questions. And I am curious, Edgar, how you work out those costs, and you don't have to answer, but I am really curious how you handle that.
So we do it for free.
Cool.
Yeah, people bring us their guns. We usually know what the situation is, and we absorb all of the state costs.
Awesome.
That's great.
Edgar's a good guy. He does good stuff for the Second Amendment community in Colorado for sure.
That's
Much
awesome.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Wait, that said though, it does cost money. So once they set up
Right,
their
yes.
nonprofit, it really does cost money. We just happen to do it because we have support from other organizations. I'm sure we'll get support from you guys as well. But it does cost money. So I don't want to say that and then lead people to believe that. Oh, it's
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
no.
cheap to do it.
No, it definitely costs money. So I don't want to undermine what these ladies are doing.
Thank you, Edgar.
And
Yeah,
like Sarah said, we are trying to offset some of those storage costs with fundraising. We're going to have a lot of fundraisers in the future, hopefully with different gun shops in our area and whatnot. We do hope to be nationwide one day. So I'm sure, whereas we would love this to be a free option for people, I don't think that every shop in the United States is going to be willing to do that and be as generous as Edgar is, unfortunately. But hopefully we can keep the cost at a very minimum.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that our side, that's why it's so important that gun owners, that the Second Amendment community, like if we really want a third option, right, other than the government, then we have to also support these options.
Mhm.
And we're usually free market, loving type
Yeah.
of people. So I think people obviously know that. I mean, I hope you guys know that things cost money and they're not coming out from nowhere. So the fundraising aspect is important, but even those, I would say that there's a nominal fee that I think this is something that people understand that, hey, I rather do this where it's voluntary and it's, some type of fee associated with it, maybe a small fee, but a fee regardless, than like, oh, it's not even gonna be an option because we didn't think that people were gonna pay for it. I think people understand the necessary fees that come along with things like that. It's not free.
Right.
It's true. And I wanted to ask you ladies, obviously a lot of our listeners will probably understand why the government option is not ideal in
Right.
terms of red flag laws and some of these other things with mental health solutions. But I was hoping to hear your perspective on why a third party option is better than, what the media or what a lot of kind of big government types would say would be better, which is just to have a judge decide that you are dangerous or something and have it taken away. So why do you guys think the third option is better? I mean, I could rant about that for a long time, but
Yeah.
I'd like to,
Yeah.
I'd like
Do you
to
wanna take
hear.
it? Sure. Well, with red flag laws, as you and all of your listeners are probably already aware of, they don't abide by due process. So you're basically having a judge, without your knowledge, say that you are not able to care for yourself and you are not able to be, essentially that you are adjudicated mentally defective without you even being there, without you even being aware that it is happening. And, we think that a third option for people to be self-governing is really important because, like Sarah was saying before, we really don't have any other options, especially in the medical field. We've talked to some medical professionals and they actually get a handbook with rules and regulations on how to 302 someone. So it really goes from 0 to 100 very quickly. And, red flag laws are just making it a lot worse. It's an extreme reaction to a problem that can be solved using different methods that do protect the Second Amendment. And we want to be that method that protects the Second Amendment.
Right. That's awesome.
Good for you, ladies. I'm all about privatizing as much as we can.
Me too. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a big, and I just wonder, because you guys are in Pennsylvania and like I said, we're in Colorado. And so we just had the red flag laws just passed, this
Of
session.
course, our terrible governor. And all that
Right.
mess,
Right.
yes.
But I know I was talking to you guys or talking to Sarah about even Pennsylvania was a Republican congressman that was actually introducing that whole thing there. So can you guys talk a little bit about what's going on in Pennsylvania when it comes to red flag laws right now?
Well, Governor Wolf recently had a large rally pushing for red flag laws. There are some recent laws that went into effect about people who have PFAs and that they have to relinquish firearms within, I think, 24 hours.
Mhm.
So there's definitely, although well-intentioned reasoning behind taking firearms, gun confiscation. Unfortunately, like Genevieve was saying, it really subverts due process, and it's a very dangerous thing. Although we don't have red flag laws technically yet, there are aspects of it that could be exploited.
Right.
And I think that part of this is to offer that option so that when legislation comes up, that people can say, hey, we understand your sentiments that we want to keep people safe, but did you know that there's this option, rather than turning it into a law, just understand that people might have some self-governance options here. And the other thing is, I really hope that they don't get passed, but even if they do, it is a way to kind of undermine that. And it is a way to undermine that in states who have already passed red flag laws, because if you can take care of things privately before they become public, then it really does take the teeth out of those laws. It is a way to take care of things before you have law enforcement showing up at your door at 5 o'clock in the morning, like is what happened with Gary Willis in Maryland last fall. So, even in states where they do have red flag laws, this is still an option, and hopefully people can get help that they need before things really get out of hand and they even have to visit those things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of scary how they're moving forward with all of these laws in all these various states.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, especially I feel like the desire to protect due process. Oh, okay. Sorry. Edgar's talking to me. You need this back? Oh, sorry. The lack of due process is what concerns me the most, and I'm sure that you guys have heard. Even there's a lot of Republicans even that are totally fine with just steamrolling due process when it comes to the Second Amendment, and I do think it's important that we educate people that if you're concerned about the mental health of someone in your family, the first place to go is not the courts. The first place to go probably is a third party or a psychologist or something like that, but you don't want to just run to a judge and have someone's rights taken away. So and that's the real issue with the red flag laws, in my opinion, is not even that they're trying to have, obviously I have a problem with them trying to take away guns because of a mental health issue just on its face, but it's also because of the things that you mentioned, where oftentimes, I know in our Colorado one, you don't even have a right to be at your own hearing.
Right. It's ex parte. Yes.
So, and this is all really bad. And our president has said something, like take the guns first, due process later.
Right.
And I think that we really need to be vigilant about the fact that the Second Amendment is also a right that requires due process before it can be infringed. It's just like, not that we do a great job with our Fourth Amendment, if you think about the TSA, but in theory, there's supposed to be some procedural steps in place that ensure that we're not just taking rights away so willy-nilly. So I'm really glad that you guys are doing that. And I know I'm on a bit of a hot box about that, but I just wanted to get that out. But I also wanted to ask a bit of a devil's advocate question for you guys.
Sure, cool.
So you said that in effect, it's the gun owner that can go back and pick it up, right? So it's not the person who dropped it off who can go pick up the firearm, or can you clarify how the firearm gets returned? I guess, because what if someone's worried about them and then they just go right in and pick it up like 20 minutes later or something like that?
That's something else we were actually talking about this week that would be a good question for the board. In some states, a spouse is allowed to take in the firearm, but we do want to get some clarification on that. But the way that we have envisioned it is that the gun owner themselves would come in, they would show, just like with a consignment transaction, they would show their ID. So the person with that ID would have to be the one to pick it up. We want to make sure that, someone does not basically use it to store a firearm and then have like a, someone else come pick it up, which would be kind of like a straw purchase. So we want to be careful about that. But a way to avoid that is to have an affidavit basically that says, I attest that this firearm does belong to me. Here's a copy of my driver's license, and I will be the one to pick it up. in the situation where some people have asked what would happen if the individual died, and again, with consignment regulations in that case, then the next of kin would bring in their death certificate and they would be able to pick up the firearms with inheritance laws. So this is a process that's it's not reinventing the wheel. It's using an existing process that gun shops use all the time. So it's the way we have it set up now, just to answer your question, is with the gun owner. To be able to be the one to pick it up. So it may not be the gun owner who's struggling. It might be someone in the household who is having a hard time, like a spouse or a son or daughter. So, it's not always that gun owner who's the one that actually is struggling and bringing in their firearm. It could be someone in their home.
Right. And Edgar had given us a note. If Antonio.
So basically, he said that in Colorado, you have to still pass an FFL and go through the 4473 in order to obtain that firearm. So
yes.
Which I mean, I get it, like you're saying, it goes state by state though. It just, you never know what it's going to be. So yeah,
it will be our policy
Right.
to have the 4473. And the reasoning behind that too is it keeps everything above board. Just like with a consignment, the firearm will be logged in the A&D logbook. And there is a record for it for insurance purposes. If the building burned down, then they would have a record of that firearm. And it also protects our storage partners, because if something were to go sideways, a crime were committed after they picked up that firearm, then during the investigation after that, they can say, why did you give this firearm to this person? And they can say, hey, they passed the background check. There was nothing on their record that would keep us, prohibiting them from picking up their firearm. So it's no different as far as liability as a regular old gun sale or consignment to a gun shop.
So, sorry to interject. So you're speaking solely just your policies, not just the law. Then you're speaking of policies that you want to create in order for gun shops to adhere to, on top of the legal stuff.
Gun shops have to follow all state and local laws, but these guidelines are the ones that we're choosing to follow based on consignment regulation. So if there are local laws, for example, in California, I believe there's a waiting period to pick up firearms, even if it's a consignment situation and the owner technically still they own that firearm. It's just being in the possession of the gun shop there in California, that they still have to adhere to a waiting period. So our goal is to minimize liability to our partners, and to do that, we're following this regulation and for consignment, and then they have to follow state and local laws.
Well, that's gonna be the interesting about all of this, is that you guys are really the pioneers for this, and there are gonna be a lot of you guys are, and then that's the awesome part about this. But also, I can tell, I mean, even with Empowered, and I mean, when you do anything that is like, I see a void and I want to, change something, and I want to, be that voice and be that organization. Well, because you're pioneers, you guys also have to, I mean, you guys are going to be setting the precedent for all this, right? People are going to be looking, to you guys, no pressure,
No, not at all.
No pressure at all.
And I would say, I don't want to discount what Edgar's already doing. And what we're doing is pioneering a wide scale program that can be utilized across the United States. And we already have some storage partners potentially across the United States. We have some in Pennsylvania, but in other states as well. So I don't want to discount what Edgar's doing at all. And I know of other gun shops who do similar, but our goal is to put together a cohesive program so that it's a recognized brand, that people can see our signage and understand that this gun shop represents a place that cares in our community and that they're willing to help. And it's really good for business for gun shops and for FFLs to participate in this program.
Right. And that's the thing, is you guys are not brick and mortar, Hold My Guns, or, I mean, not, at least not right now. Right now, you guys are working in partnership with other gun stores and ranges in order to do this. And that's really what's going to take, is going to be this network of gun owners or gun, range owners who are saying, you know what, we support this. These are part of our values, and we want to support the community in this way. So really, you're just the glue that's going to be holding a lot of these places together, and have a national umbrella. And so I think that's important, though, too.
Yeah, I think the national umbrella is a great idea. I'm really I'm excited for you guys to pursue that. just on that grand scale. And I know that you're relatively new, or your company's relatively new, but what kind of response have you gotten since you've launched, or have you gotten any negative pushback, or what do you think?
I think it's been a combination. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, and people have been unbelievably supportive with some of the things that they have offered to do to help us, which is fantastic. And at the same time, people are just very scared, and people are scared to talk about mental health. People are especially scared to talk about mental health in the 2A community, because immediately, almost always, the first question that we get asked is if we're gun grabbers. And we have to kind of go on, a 10 to 15 minute rant explaining to people that we have no desire to take anyone's guns. I mean,
but we're glad that people are asking
Absolutely,
those questions,
right.
and that they're skeptical. I wouldn't expect anything less from people.
and this is how the conversation starts too, which is great, and I think it really helps also that Sarah is a range safety officer. She teaches a youth rifle class every week. Really impressive. I do work with the Gun Collective. So we're both really involved in this community already.
It is our community.
Right, exactly. So we really have no interest in taking guns from anybody. We're definitely not gun grabbers. So, but the response has been pretty incredible. And all of the negative comments have just given us an opportunity to figure out really good answers, so it's all a learning process.
Yeah. And a lot of times they'll make a comment that they'll just throw something out there, and then, we'll answer it and they're like, oh, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Right. We're actually on board with what you're doing. So it very quickly, with just a little explanation, people understand that this is an alternative. It's a self-governance option.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's true that there's people who are pro Second Amendment, and then there's people who aren't educated. So it's really good that you guys are, even when you get the pushback, that's always an opportunity to help educate more people to the cause. So
it is.
We had a question. Well, maybe not more of a question. It's more of like a statement. Well, kind of question both. But liberal gun enthusiast said, "What? That is so insane. You can't be at your own hearing." So I was gonna let you expound on that a little bit, Nina.
Oh,
why
yeah. I mean, it's not that you can't be at your own hearing. It's just that it's, for many legal proceedings, like for a criminal proceeding or something like that, they couldn't go forward without you there, because you have a right to be there, period. Whereas this, you don't have a right to be there. Like, you could be there, they wouldn't keep you out, but they don't even have to tell you that the proceeding is taking place. So it's not like you could be in a position where they're like, listen, this hearing's going to happen on such and such date, and you just show up. More likely than not, someone's just going to walk into the courthouse, get a hearing that same day, and never even tell you that this has taken place. And they don't have to tell you the way the law is written.
Right.
So.
Nina, maybe you can answer this. In Colorado, who is allowed to ask for red flag enforcement?
It was pretty broad. It was certainly immediate family members, but I also think that the friend language was in there.
Friend language is in there.
Yeah, and friend to me is so vague. I mean, that could, like, is that a Facebook friend? Because how often do I talk to those?
My friend. Yeah, I've also seen doctors, law enforcement. I believe in New York, it might even be teachers and school officials. I could be wrong on that, but it seems like I've recently seen some language on that as well. So that's another danger of these red flag laws, is that anyone could make the report and request that, that they could be looked into for this purpose, to take firearms away. So,
like, what if you break up with, like, what if I broke up with, I mean, I'm engaged now, but in a previous situation, what if I broke up with an ex-boyfriend, and then that ex-boyfriend knows that I have a gun, and knows that I, because I do have anxiety sometimes, and goes to a court and just wants to stick it to me. How I'm not even allowed to necessarily to be there to defend myself, or to argue that I actually am of sound mind to have my firearm. So it's, in effect, that's what you're talking about with due process. Your right to face your accuser is gone. You don't get to face your accuser. The accuser just gets to talk to the judge. And then if the judge does decide to take away your Second Amendment right for, is it 6 months at a time or a year at a time?
It's a year.
Yeah, a year at a time. You can only appeal to that same judge. How do you think that's going to go?
Right.
So
It's a can of worms.
yeah, talk about like a catch-22 situation. Once you get into it, you can't get out. So and quite frankly, even once that year mark comes up, it's not as if they couldn't ask for it again. And oftentimes, if they've been able to show that you were mentally, not stable enough or dangerous enough that one time, who's to like, are you still taking your anxiety medication? It's a year later. Do you still take it? It's like, well, yes. It's like, okay, well, you don't get your gun back. It's another year.
Right.
So, it's they try to make it seem like, oh, it's not for that long, or oh, you can appeal it. But all of this stuff it's all just a way to paint it in a way that is palatable to people who are scared about gun violence, but it actually is not going to help gun violence at all.
Well, just like any other government program, I mean, think about how many government programs we've just said, oh, it's just going to be this, and don't worry, it's not going to be any more than that. Well, when you give the government, an inch, they take a mile or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, that's the thing.
Camel
that
knows under the
on
tent.
everything. Absolutely, everything.
Yeah.
Like, even universal basic income. And they're asking about that. Like, oh, it's $1,000 a month right now, but why not just give government permission, right? Permission to continue to use it as a benchmark, a year today, and then who knows? It could be basically a lifetime, because essentially you're just continuously. I mean, that's why the whole criminal justice reform thing, I think, that goes so well when it comes to gun rights, because really it's just making gun owners, just law-abiding gun owners, normal people, criminals, and continuing that circle. And that's just it's not going to end. It's going to continue to perpetuate itself. So, but I have so many questions. I'm sure we have people who are this is a really interesting conversation, and something that people are probably going to continue to want to keep tabs on, and maybe in their state, or bring you guys to that, or help you guys. So what's the best way that people who are really want to get involved, fundraise, or help you guys, or donate? What can they do to help you guys do so?
Thank you. So we have a GoFundMe going. It's gofundme.com/HMGORG. That link is also in our Instagram, it's the same HMG, or Hold My Guns org is our Instagram. So that link is in our bio there. The cool thing is right now, prizegunner.com is raffling a gun of the winner's choice up to a $500 value. And it's pretty cool. He's got a great catalog, and in order to participate in that, it's a $50 more donation. So that really has incentivized people to want to donate. We understand that every dollar that's donated represents that someone is in good faith putting trust in Hold My Guns, and they're acknowledging, like, we're putting the work into this. We're making sure that people's rights are being protected here. So even small donation amounts, we really appreciate that and value it, because it recognizes that people have thought through it and they're in agreement with us. So really appreciate that.
Awesome.
We have I think it's $2,155 to go towards our goal of 5,000. We're definitely over halfway there. So we're in that home stretch, and we're just really excited to get to it and launch.
Well, hopefully our podcast here can help you guys get to that goal, because it should be doable, and you guys are doing great work with that. In addition to donating, I mean, what if people want to get involved to help this be something in their state? Is Instagram the best way to contact you guys, or to reach out to you guys?
It is a good way.
We're pretty much always on there. So
yeah, there is a contact form on our website, holdmyguns.org. There's a contact form on there, so people could easily reach out that way. We're definitely interested in talking to people interested in volunteering. We're interested in partnering with gun shops. We can kind of see some questions going. There's a question earlier: who is the ideal gun shop? The ideal gun shop is someone is a gun shop in the community who cares about their community. They're compassionate, and they have that firearm storage. They're going to treat their customers with respect. We really want it to be as professional of a transaction as possible. Right. So, we've all been to gun shops, especially as women, where, you walk in and you really feel uncomfortable. And so in general, we want the partnering shops to have a really good reputation, to treat everybody with fairness and dignity. That's very important to us. Right. So people can help out that way. People could help out with just basically getting the word out, and also getting the word out to local medical professionals and mental health resources that this is an option in their community. So once we get our gun shop partners in place, then they will have a good stack of brochures and volunteers to go out and, canvass the medical community, the mental health community, to be really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah. Well, even with that, like you're talking about the mental health, professionals and stuff. I mean, I don't say I can't wait, but kind of I can't wait. You know how I get on the policy and the law side of things with politics, but when the anti-gunners in other states, when maybe they failed last session, or they want to bring this up again, or for the first time in their state about red flag laws, when the other side, before we would always have this long pause of like, okay, well, then what are you guys going to do about it? Right. Well, now we finally have something, or even just the concept, even if it's not in their state yet, of we can have an alternative. There is something other than red flag laws that we can use in order to do this. And we can, again, promote this type of thinking, because I think it's important. So yeah, now we have something to say, like, actually, we do have this.
We actually have alternatives.
Right. holdmyguns.org. Go to it. So thank you guys so much for what you guys are doing for for our country, really, for America. I mean, this is helping in so many different ways.
Humble.
That's really like, but I mean, I think in general, not even to the gun community, I think everyone really needs to talk about mental health in general, and to, like you said, stop the stigma, because we need to talk about mental health, because there are people who are hurting and they don't know where to go. So particularly
and they're afraid to get help because they're afraid to have those red flags enforced. So if we can encourage people so that they can get help, that's a good thing. This is a very important conversation that we're pushing here. So
absolutely.
Right. And I think part of the reason people have been so scared to talk about mental health is because of the red flag laws. Like, as soon as we go down that route, the instant thing is like, oh, well, if you have such and such mental problem, you should just not be able to have a gun. But I'm really glad that you guys are providing an alternative to that argument, because now we can talk about mental health and not be scared. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you ladies, thank you so much. We're gonna say adieu to you guys.
And we did have one more. Someone else asked how to donate again. So just one more time, what's your GoFundMe? And we'll put everything else in the description, your website and all of that as well.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead. It's GoFundMe.com/HMGORG.
Yeah.
And that's our GoFundMe there. So any donations would be super appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah, so listeners, go help these ladies out, please.
Do it. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much, and I'm sure we're gonna definitely see you guys later. Yeah, at least see you guys on the interwebs, if not in real life. But thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Antonia. Thanks, Nina and Edgar.
Great to see you. Keep up the good work, ladies. Keep it up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Alrighty, so we're still on, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so Edgar is like Eggers or something. Are we ending? No, we're just ending.
Oh, we were ending the interview, but we were gonna have a little closing after that. Or that's what we normally do.
Yeah, we were actually gonna talk about.
We're back.
The fabulous ladies, they're still here. We're happy to have you here, ladies.
Yeah, right. Thought we were done. But
they're like, can we stop spelling now? It's over.
And we appreciate everyone listening and in the comments for bearing with us as we adjust into our new studio, because it is our first day in here. So
yeah, we always have excuses though. Like seriously, every week we have an excuse for it.
Even one
nice in there though.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks. Edgar, are you having trouble?
If not, we can totally just end it. Like, with them not there, it's okay. We're not going to talk bad about you guys, so we're good.
We promise we won't.
So, but yeah, well, anyway, so that was a great episode. Thank you guys for joining us in the conversation and the comments, the questions, really good stuff. So yeah, Edgar, you got it. Oh, okay. So
we figured it out.
Yeah. So next week, I'm really excited. It's going to be Oh my goodness. We have her name is Ashley. She's from the Cody Firearms Museum. She's a curator there.
Cool.
Curator
I'm
there.
so excited.
So we're going to talk about women in firearms and the history of that, particularly in the West. I've been talking about this for a little bit, so I'm geeking out again.
I hope she knows a lot about Annie Oakley because I'm going to ask her questions.
Oh my goodness, yes, and also actually, so I don't want to like steal her thunder, but I don't know if she was her master's or like PhD, but she got she did her dissertation or thesis rather on the whole radicalization of feminism in the 60s and 70s, armed feminism. So I'm really excited about hearing that. Just that alone. So if you want to like just come for you guys, they're like, oh, feminism again. Okay, think about all the like great tidbits that you're gonna be able to use against your anti-gun like female friends after this episode. So join us next Monday.
And we all know you have female friends like that. Don't pretend like you don't.
You guys have asked us questions about how you guys talk to anti-gun women.
Or like how to like date or find a woman who's not anti-gun, which means that there's a lot of anti-gun women around y'all, I guess.
Too much. So anyway, so you guys should be sure to come back next Monday when we have our conversation with them, our interview. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And we're gonna be much more steady about having it every Monday at the same time. And now, thanks to Edgar, our production quality is gonna keep going up all the time. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. Hopefully, there'll also be more news that's not just like Trump is a racist, because I don't want to talk about that.
So
I'm over it. yeah, but I'm not over you guys. So thank you so much, and I'll stop giving over and over endings here. I'll let Antonia close it out.
Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us on Trigger Warning 2A. I'm Antonia Okafor,
and I'm Nina Prevo. Thanks for stopping by today, guys.
Bye, guys.